Hi, I'm Hadrian with Group 4, and we're going to be talking about a little map and compass work today. It's 2021. Lots of times people ask me, don't we just use a GPS? Yes, we do, but GPS can often fail. Batteries fail more often in the cold, and having a good map and compass on you is going to be your friend. So we do lean into these skills, and we will lean into them on the trip. Teaching map and compass in a classroom is difficult enough, but teaching it over Zoom in a classroom is even more difficult, right? So let's set expectations early. We're going to be going over some features, vocabulary today. We don't expect you to retain it all. We can send out these videos before we go out on the trips and you can review them. But the real goal is to have a shared sort of vocabulary so that when we're out on the trail, we can be practicing these skills. Which we will be doing often. We'll be stopping, taking our bearings, getting a sense of where we are, and hopefully staying found. And that's going to serve us well on the trip. Also setting expectations, right? To become an expert at map and compass, it said that you need to practice 30 or 40 hours. Obviously, we're certainly not going to have that today, and probably not on our trip this season. So these are skills you need to practice to keep up. But we're going to give you a framework to practice those skills and teach you how to use them and where to use them. And they'll make a lot more sense when we're on the trail. Speaking of maps, right? What type of maps do we use when we're traveling in the backcountry? And the answer is we're going to use a good topographic map. Previously, we would always use, years ago, USGS quad maps. These days, often we're getting these maps from websites and online sources. We'll provide a map to you for the first trip. We'll let you source your own map for the second trip. The sources are several. The most popular one these days is a website called caltopo.com. It allows you to print free maps up to a certain size. And then for a small annual fee, you can print maps even larger. And if you do want larger maps, it's easy to download the maps, send them to your local FedEx Kinkos, and print them out in color. Oftentimes, again, we're in a winter environment. We're going to talk about waterproofing our map, right? And how do we do that? You can sometimes get them printed on waterproof paper, or you can stick them in a Ziploc bag or use an actual map case. All of those work, and all those work well. Another website, if you want them to print it for you for a little extra fee, is mytopo.com. They will send you the map for a small fee, usually around $15-ish these days, but it does take up to 7 days to get the maps from this source. So anticipate ahead. What features are we going to want on our map? The nice thing about modern day maps and websites is we're able to customize our maps, right? So we're going to want to center the map on our location. We're going to want to have some landmarks for later on when we talk about triangulation. But a good map is going to have some of the following features, right? And before we talk about that, right, let's review. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on maps, and then we're going to get into compasses, which I know is the more interesting stuff. A lot of people think they're familiar with maps, but the reason I spend some time on it is that maps can give us direction, distance, elevation, terrain, right? All these things are on the map. A compass can really only give us direction, but used together is a very powerful tool. Okay. When we talk about maps, we're talking about topographic maps. And one of the first things we want to look at when we select our map is scale. And there are a couple different types of scale in maps. One is going to be a ratio. These are some common ratios you will see on maps. And that's generally listed down here. And I have a 1 to 24,000 map I'm holding in my hand. And oftentimes I'm asking, what is this? Is this inches? Is it feet? Is it meters? It's all those things, right? It's a ratio. So 1 inch on the map equals 12,000 inches in the real world on a 1 to 12,000 map. Same thing goes for these. 1 inch on the map equals 24,000 inches in the real world. This last one is an odd number, but the reason they use it is because in this particular case, 1 inch equals 63,600 inches in the real world, which is 1 inch equals 1 mile. For our purposes, we're probably not going to want to use a scale like this. That gives us too large of an area and not enough detail. All right, and so when we're looking at these, it's going to be an area versus detail consideration. 1 to 12,000 map is going to give us a lot of detail, but we're going to be walking off that map pretty quickly. So we're going to have a big stack of maps for our trip, which is inefficient. 1 to 24,000 is pretty much the standard in backcountry travel if you're backpacking, or in our case, winter backpacking is going to be the one you want to get. Oftentimes, which is nice about the online services, is you can customize that. If you do want to encapsulate a few different landmarks on there, you can adjust that ratio to one very close to that, but which has all the key features on the map. Another type of scale on our map is going to be this little line down here, which gives us a sense of straight line distance, which will usually look like that, a little mile, or it'll have another one down here, which is a kilometer, and gives us a sense of straight line distance. In the winter, that's something we can often actually do, is travel in a straight line, but much more often we're traveling on trails or around different features, landmarks, contours, and so we'll have a curved line. If we want to translate that curved line into the straight line distance, oftentimes what we can do is hold up a string along that line. If you have a compass, a string on your compass. A lot of search and rescue teams will use pipe cleaners, although I'm generally not carrying a pipe cleaner in the backcountry. But you could start in this section, match those curves, figure out how far it is to that lake, and oftentimes that distance is going to be a lot farther than it looks as a straight line, but that's how you translate that into the straight line distance on your map. Real quickly, we can get into colors on maps that we're going to see. Generally green, right? Green is going to be vegetation. How much vegetation? As the story goes, it's enough to hide a platoon of soldiers, right? Often these maps were created for military use. That can be important to us as backcountry travelers because, say we do need that rescue, that helicopter rescue, we're going to want to be in an area that is open, white on our map, so that they can see us, not in dense vegetation. Conversely, a big storm coming in, lightning storm. We don't want to be in an open area, open exposed ridge, which is going to be white on our map. We're going to want to get into a wooded area where we are not the tallest thing around. So pay attention to that green. Obviously, we're in California. Green can change due to wildfires, droughts, landslides, all those sorts of things. Red on our map is going to be boundaries. This is important to us as travelers because it tells us what jurisdiction we're in. Are we in a wilderness area where we can only have 12 people? National park. What agency are we going to need to contact to get that permit? And also major highways are going to be often in red because they are considered boundaries as well. Another color on our maps is going to be blue, right? Blue. Any guesses? You got it. Water. Water sources. Water's life in the backcountry. We can go 3 days and then we're done. So oftentimes we're going to want to look for water and source it on our maps. Obviously in the winter we have another source of water which is all around us on the ground. Know that oftentimes on a map you'll see an area with blue slashes. That's going to be a glacier. year-round ice. Sometimes you will see solid blue lines. That's a year-round source of water, in theory. And other times you will see a dashed and dotted line. That's going to be a seasonal source of water, right? We need water. In our case, it's winter, so not as applicable, but in the summer, right, that becomes very important. That's whether it's seasonal, and you're going to even find water there. You're going to put your eggs in the basket of a year-round creek if you are looking for water. Another color we find on our maps are black items. Black is going to be man-made items. Trails, right? Single dash line is going to be trail. Those are generally going to be covered up for us in the winter. But you will see geometric shapes such as squares or L-shaped boxes. These are going to be structures, right? Important for us in the winter because maybe we need emergency shelter. If we can see those on our map and see where they are, maybe that's where people are. People are going to be coming. Good places to get to. Also, minor roads are going to be denoted in a black color. The last and most important color on our map, at least for us, giving us a sense of travel, is going to be brown, right? And these are these famous topo lines, which give us the name of topographic maps. The thing to know about topographic lines are that the more spread out they are, right, the less steep the terrain is going to be. And the more close they are, the steeper the terrain is going to be. In the winter, think about avalanche danger when it's very steep and those lines are close together. It's also going to tell us the elevation we're at. Every fifth line of a contour line is going to be thicker and is going to be what we call an index line, right? And somewhere on this line is going to tell us the actual elevation of that area. If we look down here, the next index line is going to tell us a different elevation. That's going to give us the interval between these two, right? I have 200 feet between index lines, so I'm going to have 40 foot contours, and that might be denoted on your map as well. So each of these sections is going to be 40 feet in vertical elevation. Once we know that, we can explore different shapes on our maps, right? And we can get used to learning about different shapes. If I see a shape like this, I know that essentially this is going to be a hill, right? Increasing elevation towards a round hilltop. I can tell that even without the numbers, because if this were a depression, which would give me the same shape, map makers know that that's going to confuse you, and you would have tick marks like this. For Star Wars fans, we call that a Sarlacc pit. And that's going to be a depression. Often you'll see that in mining areas, not too often on backcountry area maps. Once we see that, we can get into further complicated shapes. Right, so we look at something like this, we can tell that this area right here is what we call a saddle. And that's going to be a low point between these two peaks. Important for us because as backcountry travelers, we don't want to travel any farther than we need to uphill because it wears us out, right? So maybe we need to get on the other side of this ridge. We're going to be traveling and trying to hit that saddle as we go over. Be efficient, save our energy, travel smart. Other shapes we'll see are ridge lines, right? If I'm trying to get to the top of this peak and I'm looking at this on the map, I can see that going up this side is going to be much more difficult and much more steep. Whereas if I'm approaching this and I want to get up there, maybe the route I take is up this ridge line because it's going to be a lot easier going to get to my destination. We'll point these things out on your maps. We'll spend some time with them, and hopefully at the end of that you'll be able to get sort of a 3D representation of what you see on the map. One of the final things you might want to put on your map if you're ordering it online is a UTM grid. The UTM grid will appear as a blue grid line, and if our GPS is working and we are totally lost, GPS is great at finding us on that grid system in a very specific spot. And we can talk about why that's superior to latitude and longitude as we're out in the field. That is the first section on maps. And I'm not there to answer questions, but I know there are other people there that answer some questions for you on those things, and we're going to be talking about them a lot as we're on our trip. So there you go.